Welcome to Neo and Jiho Part 57. Remember to subscribe and tap the notification bell not to miss any part. It was a Monday morning when Taiho arrived at Jiho's villa. He came quietly, as he always did, his presence steady and unhurried. The household stirred with its usual rhythm, but Jiho had already set aside this time for him. The maid greeted him politely, bowing as she opened the door. Neo and grandmother were awake, already seeing to the morning arrangements, but Taiho did not stay in the common rooms. Jiho had told him the night before the study was waiting, and so was he. When Taiho stepped into the study, Jiho was already there. He stood near the broad desk, his hands resting lightly on the surface, his posture calm but purposeful. When his eyes lifted and caught Taiho's, the faintest smile curved across his lips. "You're early," Jiho said softly. "I would not let you wait," Taiho replied. Jiho motioned toward the seat opposite his, but Taiho remained standing until Jiho sat down first. Only then did he take his place, his movements disciplined, almost ceremonial. For a moment, silence settled between them. Not the silence of discomfort, but one of weight. They both knew why this meeting mattered. Jiho did not waste time. His tone carried warmth, but beneath it was gravity. "Taiho," he began, "I've been thinking about what you've done for me. Not just as a protector, not just as a man at my side when trouble came, but as someone who gave without asking, who stayed even when there was no promise of reward. You have done more for me than I ever deserved, even before I knew the full truth of our connection." He leaned forward, his eyes steady. "You stood by me in silence, with patience. And now I cannot leave that unrecognized. I have already arranged for shares in the company to be transferred to you." Taiho's expression did not change quickly. He was a man who received words with restraint, but there was a flicker in his eyes, a shadow of surprise that Jiho caught immediately. Jiho continued, his voice gaining strength. "You never asked me for anything, not once, but I know what loyalty costs, and I know what it means when a man chooses to stay when he could walk away. What I'm giving you is not charity, it is acknowledgement. It is my gratitude made visible." He paused, the weight of his words filling the room. "Even this still feels too little for what you've given me, but it is the least I can do." Taiho inclined his head, his reply measured. "I never sought this." "I know," Jiho answered, his voice soft. "That is why you are the right one to hold it." Jiho straightened, his tone shifting into calm resolve. "You will not just be a shareholder. You will be my trustee, my right hand, the man who can stand in my place when I cannot. The board will hear it from me today, and they will know where I stand." For a long moment, Taiho was quiet. He did not argue, nor did he boast. He simply sat, letting the weight of Jiho's trust settle. Finally, he said, "Then I will stand where you need me." Jiho's eyes softened, and his next words carried the warmth of brotherhood. "It isn't only me who sees this. Insu and I spoke about it. He told me plainly, the best person who can keep us safe, Jiho, is Taiho. I have never seen such a man in this life." A faint smile touched Jiho's lips. "Even Insu, who guards his trust closely, recognizes you. That alone tells me this decision is right." Jiho reached into his desk drawer and withdrew a set of keys. They glinted under the study light as he placed them carefully on the table between them. "These are yours, the keys to a private office at the company, a space that belongs to you. Whenever you walk into that building, you will not walk as a guest. You will walk as a man with his own place there." Taiho looked at the keys briefly, then back at Jiho. He did not reach for them immediately, as though giving himself a moment to measure their weight before his hand finally closed around them. "I will use them well," Taiho said simply. Jiho nodded. "I never doubted it." "But Taiho's preparedness. I plan to brief you on the board members," Jiho said. "Their loyalties, their patterns. I thought it would help you prepare." But Taiho raised his gaze and spoke calmly. "I already know them." Jiho's brows lifted faintly. "This weekend," Taiho explained, I spent the hours reading, listening, studying, their career paths, their habits, their decisions, the way they shift under pressure. I know who values profit, who values security, who hesitates before choosing. I know which ones doubt easily and which ones look for strength in another man's posture before they decide their own. Jiho sat back, quietly astonished. He did not use words. He rose, walked around the desk, and placed his arms firmly around Taiho's shoulders. "This is our Taiho," Jiho said, his voice full of pride. "Always ready before the world even asks." For a man like Taiho, the embrace said more than any title. He received it with a small nod, his own silence carrying all the acceptance he could not voice aloud. When Jiho released him, Taiho reached into his coat and drew out a sealed envelope. "Before I leave for the company, I was instructed to give you this." Jiho took it carefully and broke the seal. Inside was an official invitation, marked with the signature of King Jihun. The letter invited Jiho, his mother Kangbora, and his family to a gathering. It bore the king's personal number, a sign of intimacy few ever received. But what stunned Jiho was not only the letter. Folded inside was a drawing. It was of Jiho himself, sketched by the king's young son, Daejin. The lines were simple, but the effort spoke volumes. Beneath the drawing, in the king's own handwriting, was a single line: "My role model, Kang Jiho." Jiho froze. His hands tightened on the paper as though it might dissolve if he wasn't careful. His throat closed, and his chest rose with an unsteady breath. For a long moment he could not speak. Taiho's voice was quiet, respectful. "Now you see. The bond runs deeper than you imagined." Jiho's eyes misted as he whispered, "I never expected this, to be called a role model. By him." He folded the paper reverently, his fingers trembling slightly. "Thank you for bringing this. Thank you for being the bridge to a family I never knew I had." Jiho placed the envelope safely away, still feeling its weight in his chest. 11 o'clock, Jiho said quietly. Taiho inclined his head. "I'll be there." Jiho exhaled, then added, "When you walk into that boardroom, remember this. You're not just my trustee. You're family. They may not see it yet, but they will." A flicker of determination lit Taiho's eyes. They walked out of the study together, their steps steady. Neo's voice carried faintly from the dining room, grandmother's calm presence anchoring the house. Kangbora would arrive soon. But for now, this moment belonged only to Jiho and Taiho. The decision made, the trust sealed, the bond confirmed. When Taiho left the villa, the keys were in his pocket, the king's envelope delivered, and Jiho's trust carried like a shield across his shoulders. The morning had begun with silence. It ended with a promise that in the hours to come, in the boardroom where doubt would linger, Taiho would stand, and when he did, the ground would not shift. Meanwhile, at the hotel where they had spent the night, Tumi and Insu stirred slowly into the morning. The room was still heavy with the memory of their intimacy. For the first time in their lives together, something had shifted, something tender, something permanent. Tumi lay curled under the sheets, her face half hidden, her breathing even. Insu lay beside her, eyes open, staring at the ceiling, but his heart was far away. He kept replaying the moment she had stopped his hand, the moment she had whispered with trembling but steady conviction, "No need. I'm ready." Those words kept echoing in him. They had broken something open in him, a wall he didn't even know he had kept. He turned his head and watched her, how her lashes brushed her cheek, how the corner of her lips curved faintly even in sleep. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Her eyes fluttered open. "Morning," she whispered. He smiled, the heaviness in him easing. "Morning, my love." For a long while they didn't move, only lay there facing one another, soaking in the silence that carried more than words. They rose slowly, dressing without rush. Breakfast was waiting downstairs. Insu had ordered it earlier, and the staff had prepared a quiet corner of the hotel dining room. They sat across from each other, the table laid with fresh fruit, eggs, and coffee. Tumi picked at her food, but her eyes kept drifting toward him. "You're too quiet," she teased. "I'm thinking," he replied honestly. "About what?" He looked at her, holding her gaze. About how lucky I am. He nodded, his hand reaching across the table to cover hers. Always. After breakfast, they walked together to the car. Insu opened the door for her, waiting until she was seated before taking his place behind the wheel. The city was already alive outside, but inside the car there was only them. As he drove, he glanced at her, then asked suddenly, "If we were to get married, what kind of wedding would you want?" She blinked, caught off guard by the question. Then she smiled softly. "A very simple one. I don't like many people at weddings. As long as Neo is there, I'd love the simplest wedding possible." Insu chuckled quietly, his shoulders easing. "We have the same mind. I don't like grand weddings either." Her eyes brightened at his agreement. "Really? Really?" he said firmly. "I don't wish for a grand wedding. Just something real, something ours." The silence between them after that wasn't empty. It was full, charged with a shared vision. Then he asked another question. "Among the countries you long to visit, which ones would you choose first?" Her eyes lit with a spark of excitement. "Two. France and the United Kingdom. I've always dreamed of seeing them. France, especially." His lips curved slowly. "France is my favorite, too. Jiho and I spent time there together. The people are kind, very open. You'd love it." She looked at him, her smile widening. "Then we already agree again." Inside his mind, Insu was already planning. He had measured her finger while she slept last night, quietly taking note of the size for her engagement ring. He had already begun to think of jewelers, of designs, of the perfect way to ask her. France wasn't just an answer anymore. It was becoming the destination. The drive continued smoothly, their conversation flowing easily. Soon the familiar gates of Jiho's villa came into view. When they stepped inside, the air was warm with family presence. Kangbora had already arrived, and grandmother was seated calmly, her posture dignified as always. Neo was nearby, moving with the quiet grace of someone who carried both authority and tenderness. Insu greeted them first, bowing respectfully to Kangbora. It was his first time meeting her, and his words were sincere. "It's an honor." She smiled softly, her eyes kind but sharp. "So you are Insu. I've heard of you." Her tone wasn't harsh. It was testing, weighing. Insu held her gaze steadily and bowed again. "Yes, I'm grateful to meet you." Tumi stepped forward next, bowing respectfully, her voice warm. "Amma." Kangbora smiled at her with more ease, reaching to touch her arm lightly. "You must be the younger sister." Tumi nodded, her cheeks coloring softly. Grandmother's eyes twinkled as she embraced them both lightly. "Come, sit. Be at peace here." They stayed for a short while, exchanging greetings, warmth, and polite conversation. Then Tumi turned to Insu. "I won't be long. I just need to prepare before heading to the university." He nodded. "I'll drive you." Sisters talk. Tumi went upstairs with Neo, slipping into the quiet of her sister's room. They sat together, and slowly the words began to flow. Tumi leaned closer, her voice low but full of awe. "Neo, I didn't know Insu had a hotel. Yesterday he showed me. There's so much about him I haven't discovered yet." Neo smiled faintly. "Are you sure you're ready for all his surprises?" "Yes," Tumi whispered, almost fiercely. "He's opening up slowly, but it makes me love him more." Neo's gaze softened. "You should know. He loves you more than he can show all at once." Tumi's eyes dropped. "He told me too. I had to explain how I felt inside." Neo nodded. "That's good. He needed to hear it. Sometimes men don't understand until we speak it clearly." Tumi exhaled, her shoulders loosening. "I didn't know. I wouldn't want to make him uneasy. I'll learn." Neo reached out, hugging her gently. "That's my sister. You'll learn together. That's how love grows." Later, before they left for the company, Insu asked Neo to step out onto the terrace with him. He leaned against the railing, his eyes thoughtful. "Neo, I want to ask Tumi to marry me this weekend." Neo blinked, caught by the sudden confession. Then her lips curved softly. That's wonderful. I want it to be a surprise, Insu continued. I want it to be perfect. I need your help. Sketch her address, something she would love, and... He hesitated, then added quietly, I'll need her passport. I plan to take her to France. Neo's eyes widened slightly, then softened with approval. She will love that. France has always been her dream. I'll help you. I'll give you the dress designs, the measurements, whatever you need. Insu's shoulders eased, gratitude flooding him. As he drove Tumi toward the university, her laughter beside him, he thought of the words she had whispered in the hotel. I'm ready. With you. For everything. That was enough. Enough to carry him through the board meeting ahead. Enough to give him courage for the weekend to come.